For more on China-U.S. trade, I spoke earlier to Dali Yang. He's a professor of political science at the University of Chicago. I asked him about the latest on ZTE negotiations and its impact on the trade talks.
Well, certainly that trade is highly significant in that it speaks to a core concern of the Chinese side. Actually, the sanctions on ZTE have been especially crippling to the company, and is one of the stars actually in the state sector for China's telecommunications and really it's a sort of industrial strategy. So in that sense, actually, by saying that the U.S. is relenting on it a little bit, that really sets the tone for the visit by Vice Premier Liu He. And of course, in that sense, actually, trade and negotiations about give and take, and the president in particular is actually interested in give and take. So I think actually we are expected to get some sort of movement, certainly, in bringing the two sides together, and especially in trying to resolve some of the key issues before a master deal, probably later on.
So you get a sense that we are seeing some movement on these trade issues. So give me, if you would, as a scene setter, just how significant this visit is from Liu He.
Well, the last visit by the U.S. side to Beijing produced about 30 hours of really discussions on both sides. But actually, the two sides were also to some extent, actually grandstanding. They were sticking to their positions. And then, of course, after that visit, there was reassessment on the part of both, and they saw how far they were. And of course, in the process, of course, there are various other forms of communications behind the scenes in trying to see how, in fact, the two sides can move closer. So by the president making that trade and softening his position on ZTE, the U.S. is giving China face to say, well, now it's your turn to make some movement.
Now, it seems that this trade tussle kind of ebbs and flows. It's kind of all over the place. We have these high-level talks going on, but at the same time, taking place here in Washington, D.C., the U.S. Trade Representative 301 hearing kicks off on Tuesday. That's going to go for a couple of days. There are lots of folks lined up to testify. They aren't happy about what's going on. Talk to me about that element of it, and how does that factor into all of this?
Well, certainly the hearings are going to be important, especially if a lot of businesses complain about the tariffs and so on, how those are hurting their businesses. And I think actually that in turn would combine with the pressures from the Chinese side, because the Chinese side has already made it more difficult for American products to go into China, whether it's agricultural products, including fruits and so on, and also vehicles. So in that sense, actually, so sort of there is pressure on the U.S. side, on the administration to say that, well, you want to be tough on China, but at the same time, it shouldn't be hurting us ourselves too much, especially as elections are coming in the coming month. And of course, then there is also Korea. And of course, the president is going to be visiting a meeting with Kim Jong-un in Singapore in June. And China has been praised by the president for playing a very constructive role in helping with that. So there are multiple sides that the president has to think about in maintaining a cordial relationship with President Xi.
That was Dali Yang joining us from Chicago earlier.